Hello, and welcome to Community Voices, where we talk to Humboldt County's movers and shakers. Today's guest, Access Humboldt's Executive Director, Sean McLaughlin. And now here's your host, Ray Olson.
Welcome to Community Voices right here in the Access Humboldt studios. And I am your host, Ray Olson. And joining me today is Sean McLaughlin, the Executive Director of Access Humboldt. Thanks for coming out.
Are you kidding? I'm here often, so
Yeah.
It was not a big deal for me to get here, but thanks a lot, Ray. I really appreciate you helping us out and hosting these series of interviews with folks in the community and sort of helping our viewers understand different aspects of what's happening. So I'm really happy to be here today to talk a little bit about the history and the foundations of Access Humboldt and what we try to accomplish here for the community.
I would love to hear it. I'm a member, and I got to say, it's kind of a real honor to be able to have some one-on-one time with the Executive Director of Access Humboldt. So please, go on. I'd love to hear some history.
Well, thanks, Ray. I hope folks know that you are an independent producer and you do your own program, and we did a nice screening of some of your stuff at a Media Makers event, which is one of our roles, is to support every local voice. Mm-hmm. So you're a really good example of that. Somebody who had something to say in whatever way. It can be fun, can be not fun. Whatever your voice wants to be, our job is to facilitate that. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So let me just run you through a little bit of the history, because I think Access Humboldt's comes from really advocacy. The community organized and used the laws and the regulations to require the cable company to provide these resources. So the resources that we manage, for the most of the resources that we manage, that we don't earn or get through grants, that come to us through this baseline agreement, which is the cable franchise agreement between the cable operator and the county and the cities. Mm-hmm. So counties and cities are what's called local franchise authorities. Mm-hmm. So they regulate cable. And the underlying concept here is the wires that they run to your house are on public rights of way. They're using property, the easements, they're crossing streets, they're crossing easements, the poles, ducts, and conduits that those wires transverse are public property.
Oh, okay.
So in effect, they are building a business on public property. And so the franchise agreement formalizes that relationship and says, okay, you're going to pay rent for using our property. So they pay 5% of their cable revenue to the county and the cities directly as rent for the rights of way. And then they also set aside channels, network connections, and operating funds that support Access Humboldt.
Which is for the public good. Okay.
Exactly. And that's why, because it's important for us to remember where we come from. We belong to the public because we are the rent that is paid to the public for, we're a piece of that rent by an industry that is taking money out of our community. I mean, if you think about it, the cable company, when we got here, it was Cox Cable. Then it was bought by a company that operated as Suddenlink. And then the company that owned Suddenlink was sold to another company that's called Altice. And Altice then rebranded Suddenlink as Optimum. So that's a quick story of the cable company that we're dealing with in Humboldt County.
Yes.
The main one. There's a small one down in southern Humboldt, Wave Broadband for Garberville. But for the most part, we deal with them as well. But the cable company has to have a franchise to use the rights of way.
Because if we didn't have that, the only programming we would have would be sort of these programs made completely out of the area without any local context. Does that kind of sum it up?
Exactly. There was a really interesting process. So this happened maybe almost 20 years ago now in Humboldt, where it's called a community needs ascertainment.
Okay.
And there's a whole methodology where you'd go out in the community, you survey all the institutional partners, the education sector, the health, public health and safety, community development, the chambers of commerce were involved, the university. There was a whole big convening and a surveying. Said, what are the local community's needs and interests in terms of communications that the cable system could provide.
Mm-hmm.
And that established the need in the community that when the cable company wanted to get their license renewed, they have to meet the need.
Oh, so this is real community driven.
That's what I'm saying. In a community that didn't organize, the bar could be way down here, so they don't have to provide. They wouldn't have to provide anything, or almost nothing. And some communities get no benefit really from the cable franchise.
Right.
Communities like Humboldt that were smart and organized and said, no, we're going to go through this whole process. We're going to document and establish. Here's what our community needs. We need at least 4 channels on the cable system.
Wow.
We need a community media center. We need network connections that will give us live video feeds from around the county. We need funding to operate that. So all of those needs were established through this process, a community needs ascertainment process, a very formal one that set the bar. So that was the county and cities. So County of Humboldt, Eureka, Arcata, Fortuna, Rio Dell, Ferndale, and Blue Lake. Turned out Trinidad, which is the other city in the county, was on a different timing, so they weren't part of the original negotiation, but they are in the same position as a franchise authority for the cable company.
So the community really establishes this very important 20 years ago. Can you sort of summarize why it's so important to this day to have this community-based media here?
Well, I hope it speaks for itself, quite honestly. I mean, it's hard to sum it up. I mean, the way I talk about it now is I describe, okay, in our communication system, the things that the commercial market doesn't meet our needs, that we know what our needs are public health and safety, education, community development, culture and arts, civic engagement. All of those basic functions that make our quality of life more sustainable and a higher quality of life are really are not fully met by the commercial media marketplace, in our view. So our mission is to provide production capability so that you can produce content, and distribution capability so you can share that content in a meaningful way. That is, in your community, from your community, to your community, and by your community. So we're always leaning really hard into local, local, local. And so that's not all we do, because sometimes what local means is there's a segment of the community that says, look, we're tired of just hearing from the commercial market. Everything we get is maybe kind of a certain political perspective, or it doesn't really reflect our local community, right? It's coming from outside our community. So we need more local content. How do you get that? Well, you open up channels. And so in our case, we might get requested, can you air this program? I didn't produce it, but I have the rights to it, or they gave me permission. So like Democracy Now! Maybe is a really good example of a program that you'll see on Access Humboldt. It's not a local program, but it's been requested by local community members that we present that program. So it's being presented by a local resident of the county, even though it's not produced by a local resident.
So if there's somebody in the community who hears this and says, you know what, there's things I want to say on this wonderful community access TV, what would you say to them to get sort of inspire them to take the step to come into the studios?
Well, we do that all the time. And so the very straightforward answer is, if you have access to the internet, go to our website, accesshumboldt.net, and there's a whole series of menus up there about, do you want to create content or do you want to share content? More and more what we find is people who reach out to us, they already have content. Maybe they produce it themselves, or they know somebody who produced it and they just want to present a voice and not necessarily produce it.
Right.
So that's the easiest path. Even if you had, say, a notice for an event in the community, we have a community bulletin board. It's a free service. This is all free services, by the way, on the distribution side. So free airtime, we'll archive it on Internet Archive for you. The radio is a little different. We also have a radio outlet, KZZH 96.7. KZZH is a broadcast outlet. So it has to follow different FCC rules, and we're obligated to pre-screen, in effect. So we have to manage the content that airs on KZZH. With Access Humboldt, the cable access channels, it's a different legal construct.
Oh.
There is no prior restraint. We do not pre-screen content. You sign an when you deliver us a program, either it could be a link to a file, it could be a physical media, whatever form you give it to us, you fill out an agreement, and this is available through our website. It's the program submission form. So that's what you would, so let me finish the short answer to, okay, so I got a program, maybe I already put it on YouTube, but I want to share it with my local community on Access Humboldt. So go to our website, and there's a link there to share content, and then that will take you to the content submission form. When you fill out that form, what you're doing is you're giving us the metadata, the description of the program, and that's how people find it online, and that's how we present it for you. But you need to put the metadata, the title, the information about the program, and then you promise us in that agreement that I have permission to air this, and I am responsible for the content, and I'm a resident of Humboldt County, and then you click and sign, and now it's your voice going on our channel. We do not pre-screen that, we do not preempt it. If it turns out that you didn't really have, that really wasn't your content, that you didn't have permission, or it was inappropriate, or it was libelous, or that there's a series of promises you make in the form, you know, that it's legal to air, that, you know, so forth. But after that, we air it.
Yeah, you air it. Right?
So a lot of times what happens is, and I'll get back to the other part of your question, but a lot of times what happens is people call us and go, hey, I saw something on Access Humboldt and that was wrong. I really didn't like it, and you guys should take it off the air.
Wow, really?
No, that happens a lot. People don't like something, or they think or they disagree with it, or maybe it was wrong. You know, like I said, we air it anyway. We didn't pre-screen it.
Right.
So our answer to them, the first answer we give is, well, is it, you know, if you have a complaint about any of the criteria that we can enforce, is it libelous? Is it for adult audiences only? Is it commercial? And if you say, no, I just disagreed with it, or, you know, then our answer is, please come and share your voice and tell the audience what's wrong with that show, you know, what your point of view is.
Nice.
So our answer is always more free speech.
And it's community dialogue. Yeah.
Well, we hope so. If it works, it is. Yes.
Yeah, if it works, it is.
Yeah.
What now? Community. This sort of format, community media, access media, is it real common in the United States, or didn't it used to be more common, and now they're slowly dying away?
Yes. It is quite common, but it varies state by state, because it falls under state law and then local ordinances.
Okay.
And you heard my original story about how Access Humboldt came to be created.
Right,
in
through
California.
real community drive 20 years ago. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, guess what? Industry lobbied and got the law changed so that in the future in California, no community could do what Humboldt did.
Wow.
They took away the local government's jurisdiction and role in setting the bar for what the community's needs are. They just took that whole process out, and now it's a ministerial process. The PUC, the state agency, the Public Utilities Commission, just checks a box to affirm or deny, and they really can't deny.
Here in Humboldt, you're saying we have this very unique access media system that can no longer be replicated anywhere else in the state. That is incredible. What a treasure.
But let me clarify, we were just the last ones in the door.
Yeah.
There are hundreds of other access centers in California, and now, sadly, dozens went away after the state law changed and they couldn't renegotiate better service levels in different communities around the state. A bunch of them have closed. So we are in a situation where the regulation isn't really helping us anymore. Our hands have been tied. We're grandfathered in, so we can keep the deal that we had, but we can't negotiate any improvements or any going forward because the state has taken away the local government's ability to. The county and cities have no leverage, have no standing in that anymore.
So would you say the viability of Access Humboldt relies on the community desire to keep it here?
Absolutely. I mean, the same way that we were created was the community saw a need and advocated and organized and used regulation and law to require an industry to set to create these resources. How we replicate that, I don't know. But that's our story. That's how we got here. I think going forward, and what we're seeing is that whole model is on decline. First of all, we only get a piece of the cable TV revenue. We don't get like Optimum, Suddenlink. Their revenue is growing. They're making they're taking money out of this community at an increasing clip. But the part of their business that they describe as cable TV is shrinking. People are basically cutting their cable TV service and just using internet. And then they watch their media online. So that means from a revenue point of view, the revenue, we only get a percentage of their cable TV revenue. So that is on about a 10% decline curve, 5 to 10%, somewhere between 5 and 10% declining year to year. So we are under actually really an existential threat scenario here where we don't see that changing.
Right. You see it continually decline.
It looks to us like the industry, this is they're called cutting the cord. I mean, this is happening across the entire nation and the world, really, is that services that they call linear TV, the old style of TV delivery where you have channels available that you watch, like cable TV, are on the decline.
Yet Access Humboldt is sort of working to branch into other styles of media.
Well, this is why, from the very beginning, I mean, like I said, Access Humboldt was one of the later arrivals on the scene. There are lots of very successful models of access around California and thousands around the country of channels delivering this kind of service. So it actually is a fantastic industry to look, if you look at what's happening around the country, very meaningful, making huge differences in communities, the quality of life, how informed people are about what their local government is doing, access to educational resources. You saw in the pandemic, the response. Communities that had community media were way better informed because public health officials had a direct outlet to the community, to their community. So you didn't have to tune into Washington, D.C. or Atlanta, Georgia, or wherever experts were coming from. You could hear it from your own local experts, and they could answer your concerns on the ground. So community media has really sort of proven its vibrance and importance, but the landscape that it operates in is so dynamic and changing.
Shifting around.
The piece of rock that we were built on is declining. It doesn't mean there are lots of other opportunities out there, but
the revenue stream has not shifted off of that bedrock is part of the issue.
Correct.
How can people that live in this community that really believe in this access media, what can they do to help keep it alive and support it?
Well, I think let your elected officials know. Anyone in any elected position has some ability to influence policy. We found, for example, and I hate to get specific, but we're not in an election cycle right now, so I'm going to mention Jared Huffman to me is a really good example. He was a county official in Marin County, I believe, before he became an assembly member in the state assembly. I didn't meet him till he was in the state assembly, and he was the first and one of the very few elected officials in California to stand up to AT&T when they were proposing legislation that would totally deregulate broadband in California. And he was successful in getting into Congress. And so I have to just say, in Humboldt, our congressional representative is very informed and very supportive. But it doesn't hurt to let him know how important it is to us. And he's only one of X number of people in Congress, but it's important that we keep them informed and supportive. The next layer of elected officials would be, of course, state level folks. Again, our Senator McGuire and our Assembly Member Wood are both very aware and supportive of the work we're doing. And so when legislation comes up that could help us or hurt us, we do rely on them to either support or kill that legislation. So there's a dynamic that's ongoing there. So to the general supporter, I would say, make sure any elected, and then I would keep going, county officials, city officials, they all have some say in what unfolds. So let them know how important it is to you. Probably the obvious one is get involved and contact us, and if you can support us through either underwriting a program or making a donation, become a member. I mean, we try to engage the community directly in our work. This advocacy is harder, though.
Okay, the membership. I'm a member, and would you mind going over the wonderful benefits that a member has by was it $25? It's $25 a year.
So I think we're
It's
still
a bargain.
we're still at $25 a year, right? So,
Yeah.
So for $25 a year, you basically, that's your baseline that gets you a regular newsletter and updates of our activities and keeps you informed of events and activities that we're doing, like Media Makers Night. We're doing another one. We'll be doing a series of those, convenings, getting people together, skill sharing sessions, trainings. And then if you get certified, then as a member, you can come in and get certified on using equipment here. So you could be running the studio yourself. As a member, you get certified, and then the studio is available at it's all very affordable. We make sure that money is not the issue, but you have to put some commitment of time in to pull it off. So we have studio access, a control room, so a whole studio production thing is probably the most unique service that we make available. In addition, though, we also have field equipment that's available for checkout: cameras, audio microphones, audio recording, podcasting, more and more. And I guess the other thing is, I would ask the viewers here, if there's anything that you think we should be doing that we're not, or if there's support that you would like to get your voice heard or either produced or distributed, let us know. Anyway, I interrupted myself because the last piece that we're learning as we hear from people is people love podcasting. Radio, audio production, podcasting. It's a very dynamic, you might have thought of it as an old school thing, radio, but actually it's very popular, as is short format. More and more folks are doing things, online. Generationally, there are big differences in the way people use and consume media, right? We talk about the decline of cable TV. Well, people are still watching more than ever. They're watching something. They're watching the streaming service, they're watching Instagram, they're watching YouTube. You know what the number one programming source watched on a television set at home is now, according to Nielsen?
TikTok?
Good guess. No, YouTube.
Oh, YouTube,
And that's on a television set in your home.
And you have
that's compared to any. That's more than any network.
And Access Humboldt has a YouTube channel.
We have a YouTube channel, yes. And you had asked earlier. So we recognized when we were, as a latecomer onto the scene, that this was going to occur. It's not like it's a new trend. This is a long-term trend. So we started getting into streaming. We have a channel available on streaming all the time. If you want to tune into a live Humboldt County program,
which I have, I use that.
Go to our website and you see live stream, and there's one of our channel 11 that's on the cable also streams online 24/7. We make our radio stations got a strong signal around Humboldt Bay, but if it's not strong where you are, you can get it online, kzzh.accesshumboldt.net. So those aspects. I think the other thing that we did very early was we created a community media archive. You can go through our website.
Oh yeah, I've seen that. Yes.
And as a producer, we'll help you put your stuff there.
Yes.
Which is it's really an amazing resource. As an old producer, as a former producer, I say I'm not old, but yes I am. But as a producer in the analog realm, it's very ethereal. We basically, our target was getting it to air. Once it aired, we were on to the next project.
Right.
We never thought about saving copies and archiving. Because in the analog world, there was no place to find it anyway. Where you're going to go down to the library and check out a videotape. There were only so many outlets. This is pre-YouTube.
Yeah.
But now, as a media maker, you've got to know you're creating a future archive. Anything you produce now has an extended, because it's in a digital form, and on Internet Archive, it will get transcoded as formats change over time. They take their whole collection and they transcode it into current formats. So that's something you couldn't do for yourself, and it's not monetized. I mean, our thing about YouTube, it's a fantastic resource, and it's amazing that it's now the #1 programming service. But it's monetized. basically somebody's
Yeah,
making
you have to
money.
watch ads whenever you watch.
Somebody is making money off of,
Yeah.
and they're gathering your private information, and
Yeah.
they're making money off of the viewers. So we try to avoid that in our work, which gets harder and harder. That's a whole nother
well,
conversation.
I'm a huge fan of Access Humboldt. I'm thrilled to be a member, and I thanks so much to what you and the entire staff here do. So I'm very grateful. And unfortunately, we've run out of time here on Community Voices. And I just want to thank Sean McLaughlin, the Executive Director of Access Humboldt, for taking time out to talk a little bit about it. If you have any other questions about Access Humboldt, they have an awesome website. It's accesshumboldt.net. Check it out and become a member. It's a lot of fun. Thanks again, Sean. This has been a great experience.
Right on.
Yeah.
Good fun.
Thanks for joining us on Community Voices. If you represent a nonprofit that is interested in being a guest on Community Voices, email info@accesshumboldt.net. Access Humboldt, local voices through community media.